Today on Brier Cemetery, we're going to be turning this into this. If you like what I do, please like, subscribe, and share. Okay, so the first order of business was getting this thing on its own power source rather than the battery pack. So this is going to be that segment. Okay, so here's the parts you're going to need. You're going to need a timer. You do not want to overheat the eyes. This is a dusk to dawn timer or 2, 4, 6, 8 hour timer, and it's just a manual on and off. So if you do plan on putting this up for the whole month, I suggest you put this on a timer, and the back will accept the plug. You're going to need an adapter. This is a 6-volt to 2 amp adapter. You want to get something more than 1 amp, otherwise it's not going to have enough juice to run the eyes. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut the barrel plug off. This had a barrel plug, and you cut that off because you're going to need to extend the wire. At least I do. You're going to need a male, or this is a female barrel plug. So this is what's going to plug into your skull plug. Now what I do is I just, because it attaches to the head and then it attaches to the waist, so I take that, I pulled the whole cord out so it's long, but it's not long enough, so you want slack on it, because I've heard a lot of people, their skeletons are falling over and just ripping this out. So you kind of want to extend it, and I have probably a good maybe 7 extra feet, because you're going to want to have slack on it so you can do this with it, and then maybe, you know, attach it to the back of his spine or something via zip tie. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to want to get shrink tubing, and if you're not soldering, then I suggest maybe using wire nuts, or you can use these connectors. You put the wire in and then you clamp them down and it pins it in. That's another option if you just don't feel like soldering. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the shrink tubing and put it on ahead of time, because if you don't, then you're just going to mess this stuff up and you're going to be like, what do I do now? Okay, so you're going to do that. And then on your other plug, which you cut, you're just going to slide over you're going to slide this into here. And what's going to happen is you're going to shrink wrap all this together when you're done. So the next step you want to do, now every plug is different. If you notice here, this is a black and white cord. Sometimes when you cut them and you strip them, they'll be different colors. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's blue. But the black wire is your negative. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take them, twist them together like so, and form a really good joint. Same thing with the other one. Twist them together. Like so. And that's all you're going to do, is you're just going to come in here with a bunch of solder like so, and you're going to join them together with the flow. And this is pretty easy. I mean, if you have a soldering iron, this is pretty basic stuff. It's not like you're doing a circuit board or all that jazz. So then all you do is you cover these two sections up
and you use your heat gun, and that's basically it. After you use your heat gun, I like to do this. This is why this is kind of oversized. Like where the joint is, I fold it over a few times, and then we slip the other piece in. I like to do this a lot because it gives it some slack in there. And then once you have it installed like that, then you go ahead and shrink it. Yeah, so there you go. Now this is just speaker wire. It's pi 18 gauge, if I had to guess. And you don't need anything crazy. This is such low voltage. But here's your female, and there's your male from the skull up here. Just plug the two in, and there you go. Now you have to not worry about changing the batteries. So the first order of business we're going to do here is we're actually going to make this one piece. So this normal section here, his rib cage and his pelvis are usually two pieces. So we're going to make this one whole piece. So we're going to attach that hook in the back for that metal rod that came through. And we're just going to use a glue gun. We don't want something like permanent. We just want something that is going to seal this so that when we transport it, it won't be so bad. So we're just going to put hot glue in there, and we're going to glue the two pieces together. I did it already, so this is a solid one piece. It's going to be a little bit difficult to put together because if you notice down here, there's the two bars that slide onto the legs, but laying down it's much easier. The next order of business we're going to do is we install the speaker back here. I want something high so that it seems like it's coming out of his mouth. It's a little bit too big, and I need something with high power. This is a car speaker. It's 50 watts. I believe it's an 8 ohm speaker. So this will hook up to my controller. As far as pieces go for the neck movement, you're going to need servos. This one is a 20 kilogram, and I believe the torque is 20 pounds. You don't really need something like that. You could go with something a little bit smaller. The torque on this I think is 13 pounds. But you're going to need like a bunch of fittings. You're going to need like couplers and some brackets. You're going to need these Lazy Susan type things. You hook them on there and it makes the neck rotate. You're going to need a bunch of different kind of arms, and obviously your screws and all sorts of jazz. This is a flexible coupler. It has grooves in it and actually allows a little bit of a flex. So you're going to need a bunch of stuff, and I'm not going to tell you or figure it out for you. I mean, it depends on your application, but mine, I have it pneumatic and servo. So you're going to want a cylinder, and when you come over to your cylinder selection, you don't want anything with a crazy bore. I mean, you're talking, this is like 1.5 inches, and then you got your 7/8 over here, you maybe a 2-inch. You don't want that. This we're starting to get a little bit more. This is probably a 3/4, and this is probably 9/16, something like this, or maybe, yeah, it's probably 9/16 right here. So you want something like this size, and you want a rod clevis on the end. This is a rod clevis with a pivot bracket. And back here you want a pivot bracket. Now if it comes with something on here already, you can just hammer it out with a hammer. Just take a punch, hammer this piece out, and then install your cotter pins and your pivot bracket. And then you're going to need your solenoids. You're going to need over here just one solenoid, 5-way. These are 1/8 openings for exhaust muffler. This is a 1/4 inch for your air hose, 1/4 inch for your air hose. And if you want, you can replace these with exhaust mufflers, or on the top here, use full control valves, because you're going to want something that has PSI control. And yeah, you might be able to regulate it coming in off of a regulator like that, but you want fine-tuned movement so that the mouth closes and opens at the exact time. So you're going to want to put exhaust mufflers on or flow control valves. So here's my controller. As you notice here, here's the solenoid. You got to mark A and B, and then on the bottom of the hose put A and B because you don't want the mouth to be open. You want it to be closed before it starts. These are your flow control adjustables, and these are your flow control in and out. So I have both on here for pinpoint accuracy. I want the air to come down kind of quick and then up slower. And over here, these are your triggable inputs. Here's your 2 servos. Up here, you have your 8 solid state relays, and the speaker connection is up here. This can handle 50 watt. So this is perfect. This is going to work. Now down here I'm going to put something else. It's called the DMX servo board, and that's going to be able to control 8 servos. So you can also come in here and you can add a power booster. So if your relays are acting sluggish, because from what I heard, the internal turning the voltage from 12 volts to 5 volts, it's only 1 amp, so it's not going to do much. So you're going to want to power infuse an actual other piece in here, and you can do that with either the DMX servo board, you can do it with a power injector, or you can do it with your own spliceable method of adding a barrel plug and attaching an outside 5-volt source in through the barrel plug, so that you could get a 5-volt, 5 amp, or 10 amp, or whatever amperage you want, and then out here, just the box itself, you could have your 12 volts. So it'll just add more power to these 2 lines for your servos. So here's the Scaremaster. This is probably the best thing that I use. I use this all the time. If it's an elaborate thing with DMX lighting, then I will go over to the director. The director will help you visualize what you want to do with lights and stuff, because once you start getting into like 8 outputs, and then once you start getting into the DMX lighting, it gets a little bit kind of hectic. So you kind of have to pinpoint it, and you can see it on a graph instead of just kind of like coming in here and editing. So there's 2 different versions. This is the male version, and this is going to plug into the female version, which is that. I don't know if you can see the hole there, but yeah, these are female and the other ones are males. So it's really simple. You just kind of have to trial and error. You get a little bit, your first couple times you do it, you might not be able to do it very well. So like this is where your male would go. It's going to go into here, and then your female one is going to slide into the male one like that, and they attach in the center here, so you have a connection. And I suggest doing this because it's 12 feet in the air, and if you look at a servo, I mean, you hardly have any wire, and you can buy extensions, but I mean, you'd have to buy like so many extensions, and it would just kind of like break, somewhere in that line. So do that, and I also suggest that when you finalize it, just cut these, strip them, and solder it, because if it's 12 feet in the air and somehow this comes out, you're kind of screwed, especially if it's Halloween. And if you do it that way, you only have to worry about the connection at the base. So I do that for testing purposes. I use these, and then I make it, I make it permanent by soldering them together and then just having the one connection at the bottom on the board. Okay, this is the next step. I bent the fingers. This is the one hand. He's pointing forward. Now, he would point like this if you're not going to do this next step. Now, what I did is I unscrewed all these, and I quarter turned it, I think 4 screws, and then I reattached it, so that once it's attached, he's going to look like he's pointing down like that. Now, I'm going to hot glue all this, so this is all one piece. I don't want to mess around with a lot of stuff on Halloween, because I only put it up for 1 day. So I'm going to attach these 2 together. And down here, if you want, you can use threaded stock. This is threaded stock rod. This is a 1/4 inch. And if you wanted to fortify the shoulders, like in the back here, avoid that Allen screw. But you can come down like through an angle and angle it through
the other octagon part of his shoulder, and you can temporarily put it in there if you're worried about the stability of it. Just put a couple you know, like a couple nuts on the side, maybe a couple washers to give it a little bit more bite, and then you're going to just put it in there and screw the sides in just so it doesn't go anywhere. You know, it doesn't have to be tight, just make it loose, and you'll have a fortified shoulder for you to put things on. So this is what I did. I put the hot glue on the inside where the fasteners were, and I came back and I added hot glue around the inside here. So what I do is I let it dry, and if there's any valleys or crevices, I come back again, let it cool off, and then flip it, and then do the other side. This will give me an opportunity to give it a little bit more reinforcement because it's at a different position than was intended because of the rotation. And I want this one piece anyway, so it just makes things easier. So here's the other side. Like I said, you want to maybe use a vise and pin it together for it to dry. You want something that's solid because I'm making these arms move. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this year, but next year I want to make the arms move, so I have to have them pretty solid. So that's why I'm doing this. So now you have your pointer finger. So that's what I'm talking about. He's going to be just pointing out like this, and like I said before, it was sideways, which didn't look right. So now he's really gonna be like pinpointing people, and with the audio and stuff that I'm gonna be using, it'll just say all sorts of different things. So yep, we're getting there. Now it's time to see this arm. So one of the last things you want to do is you want to clean all the wiring up. You want to attach all the air hose, you want to attach all your lines, and you want to put them into actual wire loom. You put them in the wire loom, it tidies it up. You got one thing, you don't have to worry about tripping on things, and that's how that's done. So he's getting complete. Oh, this is the tidy up part. This is the fun part. I love doing this stuff. I don't know why, but tidying up is always fun. So I run split loom. I have my two air hoses coming out, my servo, my speakers, and my eye outlet. It goes all the way up to the skull. This makes setup simple. Up here where it goes to the servo, I have another one. This goes to the servo. This comes up and goes to the jaw for the air. Now here is your control panel. I always put a power supply on my control panel because you're going to need more than 2 plugs. This is a Boobox Flex Max. There's your wireless trigger. Right now I have 4 things on it. So you just come here and you just press which one you want to go off. Over here is your solenoid. You saw that with the flow control valves. And I'm gonna add DMX lighting to it now. So I have rotating lights. I'm going to write programs for it. I'm going to have flashers and all sorts of other stuff. And I also, inside of him, I put the speaker cover on. So it's a little bit less conspicuous. So yeah, this is, I love this part. This is like my favorite part of the whole thing, is tidying everything all together. So yeah, that's it.
The first order of business was getting his neck to move. This was done with a simple servo. All that it is a servo in his neck, and a program was written to turn when I wanted it to. This is his jaw moving. This is done with a pneumatic cylinder. I wanted pinpoint accuracy, and a servo would do it, but a pneumatic cylinder was a much better, reliable way to do it with great accuracy. Now this is it together as in one unit, together turning and his mouth moving. So this was just a test run to see how it works together. And in this next clip we're going to be doing his voice. This next video will be him actually talking. Now I programmed different routines for him via the Scaremaster and the director, and here's one of them.
Welcome to the graveyard. Who will be my next victim? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Now I had to come up with a DMX routine. Now programming the routines can be quick, Like a 15-second routine might take you like 20 minutes to program, but when you get into the 3 to 4 minute mark, like if you want to play music and have his voice go to music, you're talking hours. So programming the DMX lighting can take a while, but this is something that I came up with, and I have a bunch of different routines.
Welcome to the graveyard. Who will be my next victim? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
And finally, we come to the final result. Now, unfortunately, this is Halloween, so I took the sound out of it. But this gives you a visual representation of what is going on. His mouth is moving, his neck is turning. The actual fog bursts, or the upshooting fog, is DMX programming that goes off during certain parts. And this is the total effect of what we were striving for. This was a 3.5 minute routine. It took me like 4 hours to program it, but it came out incredible. I had about 600 kids. I had about 900 people just to come to see this. It was up for one day. It was down at night, and the result is exactly what I wanted. I mean, I couldn't have asked for it better. The fingers pointing at people going by. He's holding a bunch of cages, which unfortunately I never got around to videoing. There's 4 skeleton cages that he's holding. There's 3 around him. He's holding 1. The effects were great, and it actually had like the ending part had kind of like a grand finale, like you would see at like a fireworks show. Like right now we're hitting like the middle part. It was more than I could ask for. I mean, the hardest part I think for me was putting his top part on, because I thought it could be easily done from the ground. This is actually the grand finale, the end of the song. But yeah, that was the toughest part for me, was actually attaching it. So I actually had to do it from him standing. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, share, and happy haunting, everyone.